Warning: the following video contains criticism of what might be someone's favorite wrestling promotion. Accordingly, Tranquilo Club must insist that no one attempt to recreate or rewrite any of what you're about to hear, unless you want a rabid fanbase attacking you. AEW has just lost yet another one of their big stars in CM Punk. Oh boy, I said his name. I sure hope people don't start arguing in the comments. That would be silly. Anyway, with the loss of CM Punk, we've just lost out on a number of dream matches and dream feuds that we could have seen in AEW. As you read in the title, this video isn't about CM Punk. It's about an underlying problem that I've had with the promotion that I really only started to notice once Cody Rhodes left the company. Head booker Tony Khan is too conservative with his booking to the point where it's affected the quality of the show and the momentum of certain wrestlers. As always, this is clearly my own opinion. If you feel differently, then that's fine. I'm nothing more than a pretentious hack who treats wrestling like it's some high art form when in reality it's simply mindless television. But without further ado, this is the problem with AEW's overprotective booking. But first, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Magic Spoon. You know, back when I was a kid, I used to have some cereal on a Saturday morning while I watched Lucha Libre with my dad. The older I got though, the more I longed for a cereal that tasted like Saturday morning. Well, Magic Spoon's got you covered. Magic Spoon is cereal reinvented for a low-carb lifestyle while still having that awesome taste you've been longing for, all with the benefit of more protein and less sugar. In fact, Magic Spoon cereal offers 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 net grams of carbs in each serving. Magic Spoon offers a variety pack which comes in 4 delicious flavors such as fruity, frosted, peanut butter, and my personal favorite, cocoa. Yeah, that's the stuff. It'd be selfish of me to not share this with you guys, so if you click the link below and use the promo code TRANK at checkout, you'll get $5 off any order. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So again, click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use the code TRANK for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/trank to save $5 today. It's time you had a delicious premium breakfast option made with no artificial ingredients that also keeps you full all morning. Thanks, guys. Before I start my rant, I think it's important to say that this wasn't always a problem with AEW. When the promotion first came about back in 2019, a lot of its appeal was seeing matches that we had never seen before. Of course, this was by design, as Tony Khan was assembling a roster with talent from all over the world. Jon Moxley from WWE was going to be able to wrestle Kenny Omega from New Japan. AEW felt like the ultimate crossover promotion, featuring never-before-seen matches of the highest quality. And because the company was brand new, almost every match felt like a dream match in the beginning. They also had to come out of the gate swinging, which is why we got the previously mentioned Kenny Omega vs Jon Moxley dream match within the first year of the company's existence. It was a special time, and yes, of course, that had to do a lot with the new car smell that AEW had, the honeymoon phase. But stories were actually being told between major stars. At one point, Pac, Hangman, Moxley, and Omega were all interacting with each other on a weekly basis, and it was cool to see these top guys in the company having stories that intertwined. It almost felt like no one was afraid to lose back then, or more importantly, like Tony Khan wasn't afraid to hand one of his top guys a loss. Hell, some would say that the Elite in particular were losing too much in AEW's first year. But the point is, this wasn't always a problem for AEW. We got some really big matches early on, and crowd investment was at an all-time high. Somewhere along the way though, something changed. One thing that I think is worth mentioning is how thin AEW's main event scene was in the first few years. When the company first formed, it was essentially just Moxley, Omega, Cody, Jericho, and Pac holding it down in the main event. Because it was such a small group of people, Tony Khan had no choice but to book these programs between top stars with a definitive winner and loser. He had pay-per-views to sell too, which is why he couldn't coast in the early years. Jon Moxley went from feuding with Kenny Omega directly to feuding with Chris Jericho. Kenny Omega went from feuding with Jon Moxley to then beginning one of the best stories in company history in the Hangman Saga. The top guys felt more involved back then, but I think that was because there were so few of them. You had to use Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho and Hangman Page because they were what you had. During the pandemic, the roster began to grow. I'd argue that really the only main event additions they truly made were Christian Cage, Miro, Sting, and to a certain extent Eddie Kingston. It wasn't until 2021 when crowds came back that the roster truly began to grow with main event level talent after main event level talent. In addition to the original 2019 main event 5 and the pandemic signings, AEW added Malachi Black, Andrade, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole. Major superstars, with some of them arguably becoming the biggest stars in the entire company the moment they signed. Adding all of these to any roster in one single year is unbelievable, but adding them to a roster that already featured the likes of Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley meant that we would have dream feuds for years to come, or at least we should have. You see, I haven't even begun to mention the likes of Darby Allin or MJF, who were day one guys in the company who elevated themselves into a main event level during the pandemic. I haven't even mentioned the tag division like the Young Bucks, the Lucha Bros, and FTR. You also had the depth signings like Daniel Garcia and Ethan Page. It's insane to think of what the AEW roster had become by the end of 2021. The roster was so massive, and in theory, it should have made for some major feuds between main event level talent. At first, we did get that. We got the likes of Malachi versus Cody, MJF versus Punk, and of course, Danielson versus Omega. In the AEW of old, these guys would have basically just switched opponents after a pay-per-view cycle, the way Moxley went from Omega to Jericho in 2019 as I mentioned earlier. If this were 2019 AEW, Malachi Black would have gone from feuding with Cody to either feuding with Adam Cole or CM Punk. But this is where the conservative booking began. Oh yeah, that's what this video was about, overprotective booking. With so many main eventers in the fold now, Tony Khan was now trying to keep everyone happy. And as they say, if you try to please everyone, then you end up pleasing no one. The AEW roster was so stacked in 2021 that upon joining the company, Adam Cole had to be featured in a trios feud rather than a singles feud. This is just one small example. Tony Khan was now in a battle to feature everyone on the roster, and this meant a lot of multi-person feuds, which, don't get me wrong, are good, but we all know that the money is in singles programs. EVP of the company, Cody Rhodes, ended up leaving the promotion in early 2022, and my immediate thought was we missed out on so many money feuds. We missed out on a Cody Hangman and a Cody Omega feud, which could have been done at any point during his time in the company. But we also missed out on a potential Punk Cody feud, which was honestly one of my most anticipated dream matches in 2021. A major reason why I think we didn't get any of these feuds is because I feel like Tony Khan didn't want to hand a loss to any of these guys. Hence, the overprotective booking. There was a certain point in time in AEW where Kenny Omega was feuding with Jungle Boy and Cody Rhodes was feuding with QT Marshall of all people. You mean to tell me we couldn't have booked Cody and Kenny against each other during this time in what would have been a compelling feud considering their history? Or let's talk about the fact that in 2023, both Malachi Black and Andrade have yet to have a singles match on any AEW pay-per-view, like ever. In Malachi's case, I know he was dealing with a very serious back issue, but now that he's nearing a full recovery, there's no excuse if he doesn't have a singles match on an AEW pay-per-view this year, considering we have 2 left. Pay-per-views can be hit and miss. While we do tend to get a big singles match, usually in the main event, the rest of the show is filled with multi-man matches in a bid to try to get everyone on the show. It also bothers me that during the House of Black Elite feud, if you can even call it a feud, we never got a singles match between Malachi and Omega. To this day, that's still one of my biggest dream matches that AEW could book right now. But at this rate, I wouldn't be surprised if we never get it due to Tony Khan's unwillingness to take a risk. Andrade, on the other hand, I don't know where it all went wrong. Put him in a feud with Omega or Danielson or Moxley or any main eventer. For all the shit I give WWE, they're not afraid to have their guys eat a loss, which allows them to book more feuds between top guys. They had Seth Rollins put over Cody Rhodes 3 pay-per-views in a row to solidify Cody as a top guy in that company. I can't ever see Tony doing something like that in AEW. Not that he should, but he should book more top feuds between top guys in his company. Tony's biggest problem is that he doesn't want to piss anyone off. One of my favorite feuds of this year in AEW is the feud between Hangman and Jon Moxley, because neither guy was afraid to lose, and it made for a compelling and engaging feud. 2 main eventers in AEW were basically just trading wins until the final match, the Texas Death Match, determined who was the better man. This match also led into the feud between the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club, which basically sums up my frustrations with the overprotective booking. This feud should have spawned some killer singles matches between both groups. Matches like Danielson versus Omega, Omega versus Claudio, or Hangman versus Claudio. The only big singles match we got out of this feud was Omega versus Moxley in a steel cage match. It was fantastic, but we needed more, and because we didn't get a bigger combination of singles matches, I'll always say that this feud didn't live up to its sky-high potential. Top guys shouldn't be afraid of taking losses if it's going to bring more eyes to the show, simple as that. And Tony Khan shouldn't be afraid of booking top guys against each other, because in the end, the biggest wrestlers facing off puts more money in AEW's pockets. With Punk now being gone, I feel it's time that Tony starts utilizing the roster that he has, because at this rate, who knows who will be next to leave with money being left on the table. Swerve and Hangman facing off this past Wednesday is exactly the type of feud I want to see. A feud between two guys who want the top prize in AEW. Have them go at it, and then whoever wins that feud immediately slot them into the world title picture. At this point, it's not about whether your favorite loses or not. It's about fresh new matchups and big money feuds. Takeshita just beat Kenny Omega twice. He should be gunning for either the world title or another big name in AEW. Anything less would be dropping the ball. Stop playing it safe. Stop being overprotective. AEW in 2019 was the blueprint. Omega was taking losses left and right, and he came out fine. Same with Hangman. Use Ricky Starks, Takeshita, Miro, Jay, Malachi, Rush, Swerve, and Andrade in big feuds, even if someone has to take a loss. If the story is right, losing won't even matter. Enough of the Miro will be in action type booking. Him entering a feud with Hobbs was the right move. Either keep the feud going or have him immediately enter a feud with someone else, or else any momentum will be lost. Just as it happened to Wardlow, and just as it happened to Starks until Collision came along to save him. Being overprotective with booking makes us lose so many potential dream feuds and dream matches while also stifling the momentum of wrestlers who are white hot. Imagine if back in 2019 Jon Moxley had beaten Kenny Omega, then just squashed jobbers for 2 months straight without any direction. All momentum would have been lost. Instead, he went from one big feud to another. AEW needs to really think hard about where they want to take the company now that everyone is apparently on the same page. Give us compelling TV by putting our favorites against each other. The difference between now and last year, though, is that AEW now has 2 live TV shows in Dynamite and Collision. This should be enough reason to give everyone some TV time to tell interesting stories. Contrary to popular belief, AEW isn't just an in-ring company. The best moments in the company's history have all been when a good story was being told. We need more than just random matches between a main event guy and a mid-card guy. Give us the Omegas versus Jay Whites, the MJFs versus the Hangmans. Think outside of the box too, give us an MJF versus a Rush or an MJF versus a Malachi. But tell a story. Enough of these open challenges for every title where the champion just goes up against the flavor of the week that'll be lost in the shuffle after the match. Make us believe that there's a chance, because when 2 main event level guys go head to head like Swerve and Hangman did on Wednesday, the best part is that it's unpredictable. AEW has been around long enough that now more than ever we need bigger matches with better stories. Stop protecting everyone, because at the end of the day, it's for the betterment of the company. Look at what Adam Cole and MJF were able to accomplish. That should be an example for anyone too scared to take a loss or for a booker too scared to piss off his talent. I'll leave it at this. For any AEW wrestler watching this, your loss today could lead to your eventual win tomorrow.